Hey everybody, welcome back to Leosophy. This is more of a random one shot, just something I was thinking about, so I thought I would make this Sunday video about that rather than a Q&A. And that is, I'm noticing the utter erasure of the hero myth and its ramifications in real life society. Um, I was thinking about this because, and I know that I'm late to the party to be talking about this, but the Joker movie was a really interesting and good film, but it was also very sad, and it was supposed to be sad. It was supposed to be very tragic. Um, just watching this person's mental health deteriorate even further from where it initiates, and a lot of people just saw a tremendous amount of overlap with it. I mean, really, it was, in my opinion, it was Taxi Driver with pancake makeup. But, and that's not a criticism. I love both of those films. But it was sad, and it wasn't. It was obviously not a hero's journey, which is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a film that is not a hero's journey. But then I contrasted it mentally with films that I have seen that are not quite as good. Because they're not sad, and that is a lot of the more female geared superheroine films. And let me just start by saying this: this is a maxim, this is a statement, this is not something that I am wavering about. So this is a hard statement. There are no, presently, there are no superheroine films. There are only women with superpowers films. That's what they are. They are not heroines, because a hero's journey requires struggle, sacrifice, hard choices, and in the end, whatever is risked, more is gained in the long run. That's how a hero's journey works. I'm not trying to channel Jordan Peterson or anything. Slay the dragon, go to the underworld, and save your dead father, or any of that. Even though, again, there's things I dislike about him, and there's things that I totally agree with. But heroes' journeys, that's sort of what they are about. They're about an individual, usually a male, but that's not even what I'm getting hung up on, who wants to save a loved one or to do something noble in nature, just inherently. It's not a greed or avarice based goal that they have in mind, but it does require taking enormous risks and usually sacrificing something, either for a greater good or for some other noble purpose. Service of the gods, service of their family, saving the princess. That's the most generic one that, again, has been under a lot of scrutiny the past 10 years as something inherently chauvinistic, but it's totally not. It's, again, saving the princess. Very important. Think about that inherently. And I'll get deeper into that in a moment. Whereas a lot of modern films, superhero or otherwise, are not about that. They're about people trying to get paid, people trying to get laid, and little more. And then doubly so, if you look at these Harley Quinn movies, and you look at these or Wonder Woman movies, and you look at these more recent superhero, films, and even other action films, it extends well beyond that. They are either about revenge, which is great for a tragedy, but these aren't tragedies usually, or they're just about getting back at people in an even more petty way than revenge. And so when you look at these movies, it's like, yay, she's badass. She's punching faces and taking names and killing all the bad guys. But there is no lesson learned at the end, other than self-acceptance, which has become a very generic concept that it doesn't even have a definition really at this point. At least in film and tropes and books and things nowadays, there's no hard definition for what self-acceptance even means anymore. It's as generic as a kids movie where it's like, maybe the real treasure was the friends we made along the way, blah blah blah. So it's masturbation. It's just a power fantasy. It's about being strong for the sake of being strong and for no other goals at the end. It is that level of drivel. It is astonishingly bad. Not just bad storytelling, but bad for people in general. Because again, it's pornography for power fantasies. It's drivel. There is no sacrifice. There is no lesson learned. There is no greater good. There is no real goal other than to show the audience how tough and amazing they are. And it got me thinking about the reason why that falls flat, the reason why it exists in the first place. It exists in the first place because, well, we need more representation. Okay, that's fine. give them a real goal then. In the past, the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even 2000s, as early or late or whatever you want to call it, as just a decade ago, oh, a little more than that, I don't know. You usually had like a child. They would cater to that because men fantasize about saving women and children. Well, in this case, the idea of a woman saving a child makes sense. So a lot of the movies that had a female protagonist as a quote unquote hero who went on a hero's journey, they made hard choices and sacrifices to save a child, be it their own or one that they just found and so forth. That was sort of the main goal that a female hero had. Now they don't really do that so much, and even when they do, it takes a backseat to, again, the power fantasy. And I was thinking about it. The reason why they do this in the first place is, again, for more representation without considering the chief differences between men and women. Men, unironically, fantasize about saving women and children. They want to be a hero. In the most classical definition. That's something that never changes because men inherently want status and they inherently want to protect the people that are close to them, unless they're a psychopath, which there's plenty of those too. But for the most part, that's a fantasy. Women don't have such a fantasy. Women don't fantasize about those scenarios. I guarantee you, women out there who are watching, your boyfriend or husband or sibling or whoever, they have had fantasies about saving you. They've had fantasies about, like what would happen if this happened? This bad thing. What would I do? Well, this is what I should do. This is what I think I'll do. This is what I hope I'll do. I hope I have the courage to do X, Y, and Z and the ability and the proficiency. Even case in point would be James Bond. Why do people love James Bond? Because he's good at everything. And that's the way with a lot of male heroes that we sort of put on a pedestal. It's because they're proficient at things. They're good at everything. Zatoichi is a fun example. I love watching Zatoichi films because he's blind, but he's good at everything. He's proficient at things. Female heroes in movies, they just fulfill the fantasy of strength. They just, they smash faces in. They're not necessarily good at everything. And so I'm very curious as to how this, obviously it's a way to launder money, this black female James Bond movie. That's what it is. It's a money laundering scheme. It's, we made a lot in drugs and human trafficking this year. How's the studio going to pay for all that? Well, we're going to have to take a big loss. That's the sad thing about the film industry too, is the producers, Mel Brooks movie, really funny movie. It's more of a documentary. Flops are orchestrated. They're not accidents. Some of them are, but a lot of them aren't. And this is no exception. It's a way of, it's like shorthand. We're gonna tick all the woke boxes, and we're gonna lose a lot of money, and we're gonna have articles published about why we were too smart to succeed and why America's not ready for X and Y and Z. But really, it was a way to deliberately lose money all along. Perfect example though is that's not something that women look at as a goal. It's this proficiency at everything. It's very attractive to them. It's the same reason why women like to watch James Bond movies just as much as men do, I think. But it's because a proficient person, somebody who's good at a lot of things, has high status. And high status among men is something that's inherently very valuable. And that's because of just the nature of intrasexual competition among men in humans. In humans, that's super important. Women, by the way, very, very, very keen on intrasexual competition too. It's just not set up that way. Case in point would be it's more social. So slice of life sort of stories cater more towards women, which is why a lot of slice of life stories and films, like Mean Girls, for example, indulge women on what it means to be proficient, just in a very different way, more like emotional proficiency, emotional set of skills. But going back to how that has utterly corrupted the hero's journey, these characters, they're not making sacrifices because they're literally there just to tick those boxes, and they're literally written to appeal to a group of people who don't share that fantasy, that goal of proficiency with those things. And as such, the characters are not written to be proficient. They're written to just be strong, to just, again, crush some heads, bust some skulls, whatever you want to call it, break some noses, just to highlight how strong they are. But there is no sacrifice. There is no greater good. There is no real journey where they've learned something or gained the treasure at the end. None of those things. It's not that those stories have gotten old or stale. It's that those stories are deliberately being done away with in order to influence the way people think and react. And we're reaching that point. We're reaching a point where a lot of young men, I've noticed, they don't want to save the princess. They don't want to be proficient in a way that's good for the group because they have no group. They're utterly ostracized and alienated, which is why, sadly enough, the subversion of a hero's journey, the utter deterioration, no risks, doing things just for yourself and just to harm others, like the Joker movie, which, again, great movie. That's why that's resonating more. And we're reaching a point where heroes' journeys, as an idea, as something to have as an abstract, attainable goal, something that you want to be like, it's going completely off the rug. It's being swept away entirely because it's inconvenient for the powers that be. So the reason I mention this is for several reasons. One is that be on the lookout for media that subverts or ignores all of those important notes that you find in every story up until the 20th century, more so the 21st century. And additionally, seek out content that actually does highlight those things because it does have an effect on you. That's the greatest flaw I think that people have. I'm sure everybody's heard this expression before. It's easier to fool someone than to convince them they've been fooled. Well, it doesn't matter how smart you are or all the virtues that you think you have. What you consume affects you. Just like, it doesn't matter how strong you are or how great your genetics are. If you eat nothing but cheesecake all day, you're going to look like a cheesecake eventually. If you consume nothing but drivel, mental diets, going right back to that, you're going to eventually be affected by it. And right now, the films that are out there and the books that are out there, they actively ignore the most important components of drama, of comedy, of fiction in general, of good storytelling in general, for a reason. It's not an accident. And if you consume that kind of material, it's going to inherently make you more alienated emotionally and more inclined to do the wrong thing instead of the right thing. It's the wrong sorts of heroes. It's the opposite of a hero. It's not an anti-hero. That was popular a decade or two ago. It's not an anti-hero. It's the antithesis of a hero. So, yeah, that was just my little rant. I thought I'd do that instead of answer questions today. That's all I got. Like, share, subscribe. Keep asking questions. Bye.